There we go. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Anyway, nice to see Jackie as well. Hi, Jackie, and so on. So nice to see everybody. Okay, so I'm going to talk very quickly about sort of 5-10 minutes about green open homes, and just for those who aren't aware, so green open homes is where people open up their homes so that people who are interested in making their house more sustainable can go along to other homeowners who've started or somewhere on that journey and look at things like heat source pumps, solar energy, batteries, cars, and insulation, and etc. And have a confident talk with someone, and knowing that they're not going to be get the hard sell from some of the contractors that you might get. Nothing new in this, but it's new for Wiltshire that we've done it across the whole of Wiltshire over a 2-weekend period. We worked, so we've done that with the help of a working group, and we managed to find 50. I'll share slides now. Just bear with me a second. But that's what Green Open Homes is. And so here we go. Let's go for there. Hi, Richard. Anyway, so let's have a look. So, but what I want to do first of all is start off by thanking all the homeowners who opened their homes. We had over 50 homes opened across Wiltshire, which was fantastic. Whoops. I'm going to give you an update on the project. I'm not going to do that, and talk about what the future is. But you can see I'm using old slides. We had a project team, and Jackie there, give us a wave. Jackie was very helpful working on the project. Julian was there helping also. We had Ruth, who is the first time we've actually employed someone who helped with the coordination. I must say she did a fantastic job. And Julie Strawson, who's not with us at the moment, but did a lot of the marketing and so on. So we had 50 open homes. Thank you very much to everybody who took part. We had over 210 visitors. That number keeps going up as we get feedback forms from people. So that's superb, well over what we'd hoped for. 87 feedback forms so far. Many people visited more than one home. What we did to encourage more people to come along, we worked with CSE, so that's the Centre for Sustainable Energy. We worked alongside them, and they offered a free survey, which is worth over £650 for those who went and visited Green Open Homes. They're overwhelmed because 81 people have requested that survey now, and I think they'd only accounted for about 120 for the whole year. So it's been a very good success, and as a result, CSE have given us some funding, which is really helpful, and given us £12,000. So Wiltshire Climate Alliance have never had more than £2,000. It's always been from donations from members and so on, and now they've given us £12,000 to help with this Green Open Homes project and the longer term issues, which is will be making a significant difference to us, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the meeting. Okay, so we've had all sorts of great feedback. So offer more homes, you know, make the event more than 1 or 2 weeks, maybe 3 or 4, and try to get folks you know, have a calendar of when homes are open. We may well be doing that. Excellent opportunity to visit a property that was well thought out and efficient. All these kind of comments were great, and these were just the first few that came through. So good introduction. Finding tradespeople is difficult, so that we know that. Good to talk to other environmentally aware people and share experiences. So that's what that whole project was about. So basically we were very pleased the way it went. Looking ahead for the future. So some people said that they would be happy to keep their homes open more or less permanently or long term by appointment, which I think is great. So a lot of people who might come visiting WCA, look around, they'll be able to find that some homes can be visited whenever. So that's something that we're going to be working on in the coming months. we're thinking about forming a Green Open Homes group that will meet on a monthly basis, a bit like a topic group, but we'll invite people who are new on that journey to come along to that, so they can speak to Green Open Home owners and have that dialogue and maybe some interesting talks. We might have some specific open home topics, like open homes only for air source heat pumps, or only for solar, or for EVs, and push it out that way to help the momentum going. One of the main aims of the project was to put together a supplier directory. This is going to be hosted by CSE, the Centre for Sustainable Energy, and so that people can contact suppliers with confidence that they're reliable. We're always looking for volunteers. This Green Open Homes project will be carrying on for quite a while. If you are interested in it and willing to put in some hours, do let us know. I'm sure we can find some things for you to help and do it. It's growing legs, if I can put it that way, and it's making a significant difference. So if you fancy joining the working group or on this to help do stuff, then let us know. Okay, we'd appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who's involved. Any questions at all from anybody about the Green Open Homes project? No, I think I'm just basically very happy it went well. And thank you everybody again for taking part. So back, unless I can see any other questions, I think it's all there. Oh, yep. Back over to you, Andrew, wherever you are. Oh, there, top right. Got you.
Thank you. That was brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Christian, and all those others who put the work in, and above all, those who let a lot of people into their homes and gave us tremendous amount of time to talk about what they've done and what they're doing. We have juggled the agenda from what some of us were planning earlier, which is why Christian might have been a bit surprised. The second item, and I've just put it into the chat, is retrofit training, and as we've said, application success all round. Is that something that you feel you've covered enough?
Not really.
Can I pick it up, Andrew?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So just a bit of history. The CSE, Centre for Sustainable Energy, came out offering, separately from the Green Open Homes, offering training to people within the county from groups. So they looked at groups and said, would you as a group be prepared to do some retrofit advisor training? And we thought that was a really interesting thing to do as a CSE, as a WCA. So we put in an application, as did a number of other groups who are affiliated with us, put in their applications. And two things. One, it's retrofit advising, which means you can give general advice, but not specific. So you will be challenged to an extent because people obviously want to be helped, but you're not there to go and do a survey. You're not there to go and look at the house particularly, unless you feel it's necessary to help giving the advice. So that was the idea. They were fairly vague about numbers. We as WCA put in for 5 people to get trained. And then Swindon did some, Salisbury did some, Apr24 did some, and Warminster did some. There may have been another group as well, or 2. However, we were selected in the end, along with Salisbury and Warminster, Swindon, and Apr24, which is really good. So we got the money spreading around, because for each person we got trained, first of all, they said they would give us £5,000 to, as a gift almost, to help us along our way on community issues to do with climate, if we had people trained. So we weren't expecting, putting 5 people in to get 25,000. We only expected to get 5 for that. We didn't mind. That was good. But they then came back to us and said, actually, we can only do 1. So that was then we got to select. Then they said, oh, perhaps we can do 2. But by the way, if we do 2, we'll have to give you another £5,000. And we thought, oh dear, we can't do that, can we? So we selected down to 2, as with the other groups, I think. And And we were successful, and we've got 2 people here who've now been trained, or going to be trained, sorry, Kate and Richard. And lo and behold, WCA have got another 10 grand in the bank. So we're very happy at the moment, and it brings us on to item 3 in the agenda, I think, which we'll talk about in a lot more detail. But success all round in all sorts of ways, because I'm so pleased that the other groups got their money as well, because that means that we're actually going to get some real movement in support for retrofitting through the county, not just in local areas, but across the county. So it's all been worthwhile. It was a bit of effort, there was a bit of struggle, lots of phone calls, but we got through it in the end. And I think I'll pass over to Richard. Richard, you've got a bit of a background now on what it actually means to be retrofit trained, because we've applied, but we actually didn't quite know what was going to happen. Richard.
Okay, I mean, Kate will probably be able to help me out here as well, because I've literally only started. The thing that frightened me today when I went in, it's an online course basically with a number of modules. And I went into the introduction today, and it said I had to finish it within 4 weeks of it being approved. And of course, they approved it before Easter, and I thought, oh, I'll look at that after Easter. So I've already lost a week. So I'm going to be head down in my computer for the next 3 weeks, I think.
You got mute, Richard.
The host muted me, apparently. Was I speaking? Andrew?
Not me.
Sorry, Richard.
you,
There was
Christian.
someone else making a noise and I did the wrong one. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, it's all right. I don't take it personally. So anyway, I've done the first. I think that how many modules are there, Kate? About 7, I think, aren't there?
7.
7.
Yeah, I'm on module 4 now.
Oh, you can take.
Ooh.
Kate, you can take over from me now, because I'm still. I haven't even done the assessment for module 1. I'm terrified to actually do the assessment in case I get it all wrong.
Yeah, well, if you get it wrong, you just do it again, which is what I've had to do. Yes, no, it's very, very comprehensive. It's quite simple, well-produced little learning material, and then a lot of reference documents that go with it. So, for example, all the public accessible standards, PAS documents for retrofit and retrofit implementation. I wish I'd known about those before I started mine. Yeah, very well done, very good videos, and then you get multiple choice questions and a little bit of writing just to show if you've understood what you've read. And then you send it off and it gets approved and the next thing's released for you to do. So it's a little bit of a delay whilst the assessors release what you need. But yes, I'm ploughing through it, and it is proving very useful. I'm finding it particularly useful because the Wiltshire County Council gave me a grant for one of those heat infrared cameras. I've done 2 assessments so far, and I've got another one on Sunday. So having a little bit of ground knowledge to sort of generally talk about what's available, what can be done, will be very useful. But to be a retrofit assessor and actually measure a building, do its EPC rating and do all the bits and bobs is actually quite an extensive training. And I think, I haven't quite grasped it yet, but I think you get hold of one of those through the Energy Trust. So I'm not quite sure. I need to verify that, because I'm not quite sure where I would refer people to once I've photographed their house in infrared. My infrared camera shows I missed a bit, but anyway, I've done it. So I've got an after photo. Yes, good fun. Yes, it is frustrating that you have to really go quite quickly to get it done, but it's good stuff.
Okay, great. Your stars, you two. I wonder if you whether it's acceptable that you might be able to download and keep hold of some of the resources, especially the things that they've linked to, which were presumably public documents.
The public documents we can, but we had to cross our hearts and sign in blood that we wouldn't copy and paste any of the Energy Trust information.
Thank you. Bill, you've got a hand up.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of things. Firstly, guys, what is the outcome when you become an advisor then? What are you expected to, how do we consolidate our position with the money we've got supporting you in your endeavours to be retrofit advisors? I think it's the first question. Is there,
As I understand it, we're the people that start the conversation about what is available, how the building standards regulations are changing, what technologies are available. So basically starting off with the fabric of the house to get it draft proof but ventilated, how to what they can do to actually get their boilers more efficient, all that kind of thing, and then finally onto renewable technology. And then it's having opened that conversation, directing them to where they can go. A lot of people do find the infrared photograph very useful. I mean, they're not idiot proof to interpret, but at least they start the conversation going and helping people understand where they need to start. And then I think it's, you know, if they are serious, one, they can get in charge with their plumber and get their boiler better adjusted, or they can, you know, think about whether they want to change their windows or do something to the fabric of the house.
okay, so basically it's to help people on their journey. You don't actually
It's
have to visit the
starting.
house. You don't necessarily have to visit the house.
No,
You
I
can
mean,
do it online.
I'm just finding it very useful because, you know, we did that survey in Pusey, and I think
Yeah.
there were 41 homes said they would be interested in a
Okay.
retrofit assessment, and some of those people have now got back to me. So I'm getting stuck in whilst we've still got our boilers on, and I'm in my wellies.
Okay, two other things. Firstly, well, there are other groups within the county affiliated with us that are doing it. I was considering whether it would be worth having a not necessarily a monthly meeting, but a quarterly meeting of all the advisors to see how things are going. So, because there will be about 10 or 12 advisors in the county, maybe sharing your experience with talking to people or whatever. I don't know. I'm asking the question whether it'd be worth doing.
Would it also be worth putting our contact emails up alongside the home improvement guide or something like that, to sort of so people can actually contact us?
Oh, absolutely. I think we should get it onto the website and advertise you very regularly on our Facebook page and
Yeah.
Instagram.
I haven't worked out what I'm going to do about expenses yet, in terms of travel expenses.
Yeah.
I haven't been absolutely flooded with requests for infrared surveys, but I think they will pick up next autumn. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree. I would find that useful, just occasional catch up with other people who've done it.
Okay, well, we'll start it broadening with the others. We've got contacts with all for Warminster. No one from Warminster here tonight, is there? No, okay. I'll try and get hold of Warminster because they're the only ones we're not contacted yet. All right, thank you very much. There was one other thing, but I can't think it was. Fine. Good stuff. Well done. Don't forget, 1 month, Richard. Okay. Back to you, Andrew.
Hey, yes, great. Another good one. We really seem to be building capacity here. It's wonderful to know, and I'm hoping that we can keep our individual members and member groups strongly involved. And they support us, we support them, or you folks. So without more ado, time flies. Carbon literacy training, and I'm very pleased that Jen has been able to come to us for a while, at least today. Jen Gale, and I'm aware that you've got another meeting. You've got to leave us probably in only half an hour or less. So, but Jen, just to let you know that on the agenda, we've decided to, after you've talked with us and discussed this with us, perhaps taken some questions, we're going to go into Zoom breakout groups, for which you don't have to be here, Jen. And we're going to look at, in our groups, at where people might see carbon literacy training being delivered to most effect in the county, and also to discuss what it would entail for people here to volunteer to take the training or to help in any other way. So, are you okay to introduce yourself then, and who you are and what you do, Jen?
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen. I am in Warminster, but I'm not. I sort of intermittently pop into Sustainable Warminster, but I'm not in any official capacity, hence not waving when you said, is anybody from Warminster on the call? I run an organisation. When I say I run an organisation, that sounds very grand. It's just me. I run called Sustainable-ish, which is all about sort of imperfect eco-action. And I used to be a vet, and my journey into sustainability started when we spent a year buying nothing new in 2012, and I sort of blogged about it and things. So I've sort of unintentionally really transitioned into a career in sustainability sort of over the last well, I've been sort of working full-time in it for sort of the last 10 years or so. Carbon literacy training, I first came across it during one of the lockdowns, maybe the first lockdown, I think, and I did a carbon literacy course with an organisation called Speak Carbon. So carbon literacy training, I might be teaching you all to suck eggs, but if I just go right back to basics, the Carbon Literacy Project is a charity that started about 10 years ago. They're based in Manchester. They don't deliver any carbon literacy training themselves. They don't sort of produce any courses or anything like that. But what they do is they accredit all of the courses, and they accredit all of the learners, and they do an awful lot of kind of outreach and things about carbon literacy training. And the sort of, I guess, official, I can't remember the official definition of carbon literacy, but the unofficial one that I prefer is this idea that, or the analogy, I guess, that carbon literacy, if we use the analogy of financial literacy, so the whole idea of it is that if we get, you know, in the same way that we all very quickly develop an understanding, a very basic financial literacy that, you know, £100 note is we don't even have £100 note, so £50 note is a high value note and a £5 note is a low value note. And whether something is cheap or expensive, if we all, you know, the idea is that we would all develop quite quickly, hopefully, this sort of basic carbon literacy, so that we have an understanding, a basic understanding of whether something is a high impact action or a low impact action, both in terms of, you know, the everyday things that we're doing as individuals, as households, as communities, as businesses, and also when we're thinking about the actions that we can take, understanding whether the thing that we're doing is high impact or low impact, you know, helps us all to focus our limited time, headspace, energy, all those sorts of things on those higher impact things. So I quite sort of like that analogy of it. There's over 600 different carbon literacy courses now being delivered to, I was just having a look, they update the infographic on the website every month. I think over 83,000 people worldwide sort of certified as carbon literate. And the reason there's so many different courses is that they are very keen on the idea that each course is as relevant and specific as possible to that business, that geographic location, that specific sector. So after doing my course with Speak Carbon, I was very keen to develop a course for my sustainable-ish audience, for, you know, air quotes, ordinary people. So I developed a course and started delivering that in March 22, and then was sort of very excited about the possibility for using that within the veterinary profession as well. So worked with a social enterprise called Vet Sustain that I'm a director of, to develop a carbon literacy course for the veterinary profession, and have been delivering that since March 2023. And there are courses, you know, the NHS, there's a toolkit available for the NHS. It's being delivered very widely within the NHS. There are courses for local authorities, for town and parish councils, for museums, for sports organisations, for, just trying to think, I developed a course for Bloomsbury, for the publishing agents, publishing organisation. So loads of different courses out there. They have to be 8 hours worth of training. So some people, and people sort of vary their courses. Some people do some sort of self-directed learning and then bring people together for some group learning. I choose not to do that, because I personally know that if I have self-directed learning to do, it doesn't happen. So I try and, you know, all of mine is either sort of delivered either online or in person for sort of 8 hours worth, and I sort of split mine up so that it can be either for 2-hour chunks or 2 4-hour chunks, or in person. A day works really, really nicely. And they all of the courses cover the same basic, I guess, sort of curriculum if you like. So they'll all talk about, you know, what is climate change, what are greenhouse gases, what are the main greenhouse gases, where are they coming from, look at climate justice, you know, this idea that the countries that have historically and are currently emitting the most are not the ones that are experiencing the worst impacts. Look, and also how climate justice works, you know, within a country, or even, you know, we could look at like, how does climate justice work within Wiltshire? We know that people in poorer socioeconomic groups will suffer more consequences, all those sorts of things. Look at what else? Carbon footprints from an individual perspective. I usually do a brief foray into kind of business footprints, just so that people have an understanding, you know, when businesses are making claims of net zero or carbon neutral or those sorts of things, so that people understand that and how it's measured. I have done some, I delivered some training, sort of more community sort of focus training in Frome and in Northamptonshire, bizarrely, and we looked at the carbon footprint, you know, of the county, or, you know, and you can, there's a great tool, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a great tool that you can look at, and you can put in a postcode and you can find out the sort of average carbon footprint of people living, you know, in that particular town or village. That's quite a useful tool. We look at, I do a section on the importance of talking about climate change, because one of the things I really want from my courses is for people to have the confidence to go out and be able to talk about their concerns about climate change and what they're worried about, and the things that they're doing, and the sort of, you know, some of the joy and the connectivity and the positive benefits that have come from taking climate action and things like that. There's sections on sort of, you know, the impacts. We look, and again, sort of start globally, then look nationally, and then, you know, could look very specifically at sort of what's happening in Wiltshire. Then there's a bit, or I do a bit on sort of, you know, different future scenarios that lie ahead of us, depending on how quickly or otherwise we take action. And then what I hope is quite a nice positive exercise, where we look at this, you know, a scenario whereby we've done what the science tells us we need to do, and we've halved emissions. It's 2030. We've managed to halve emissions in line with the science. And you know, what are there's these little postcards, I call them postcards from the future. There was one on food, one on transport, one on energy, one on buildings. And then, you know, use that as a platform for encouraging people to think about, well, what does your household look like? What does your life look like in 2030 when this has happened? And what could your town, your community, your, you know, what could that look like, as a way of encouraging people to really think and imagine like how good this could be, because the narrative very much is, this is going to be really bad. Do you know, like, it's either this apocalyptic doom and gloom, or it's the you know, the greenies are coming for your burgers and your flights, and you've got to find space for 7 bins, and it's all just going to be really grey and austere and miserable. Well, actually, this could be amazing. And this could be, you know, we could have more connective, we could have more community, more connection, more joy, more, you know, better physical health, better mental health. But we're not doing a very good job as a sort of sector, I guess, in the storytelling and the communication that comes with that. So allowing people to imagine and get excited about that. And then the last section is all about action, and really getting people to think about, well, that's great, but like, now what? Like, I'm a big fan of nothing changes if nothing changes. So I think one of the great things about carbon literacy training is you get taken on this emotional roller coaster, and there are parts that sort of induce a bit of anxiety, but at the end it's very much like, where's my influence? What can I do? So at the end, in order to get a certification, people have to come up with 2 pledges. So an individual pledge and a group pledge, and the pledges are very much, they want them to be in the context in which the training's been delivered. So when I deliver my training for ordinary people, they can do whatever they want. They could do an individual pledge that was something home-based or work-based or community-based or whatever, and the same with their group pledge. However, when I deliver, when I do the veterinary course and we're talking to people about their own roles, we're really wanting them to think about what their individual role is and what an individual change they could make in their workplace. And again, if we were delivering this in communities, you know, we would really be asking people to think about, well, what's my role, I guess, within my community, my specific community group, or within my community, where can I have some influence that I don't need permission from anybody else to do? That's your individual pledge. And then your group pledge is thinking about how you can bring more people on board, how you can engage more people and come together to sort of amplify that action. So that was 10 minutes of me verbally vomiting at you the sort of a brief outline, if you like, of carbon literacy training. Go for it, Christian.
Jen, thank you so much. That's really interesting. And I love the work that you're doing. Superb. Wiltshire Council is in the process of doing carbon literacy for all their people. They can't, they don't have the capacity, they say, to roll it out for the rest of Wiltshire, being parish and town councils, businesses, community groups, and everything. So we're considering taking that task on and applying for funding to do that. So that's one thing that we're thinking about doing. What would you say were the main considerations that we have to take into consideration, if I can put it that way, when looking at a monster project or trying to train a large proportion of Wiltshire? What would you say? What's our main considerations?
So the only qualification you need to deliver carbon literacy training is to be carbon literate. So I guess the first step would be to, you know, deliver to a cohort who are excited about it and who feel like they would potentially feel able to go out and deliver that. Once those people are carbon literate, there are toolkits available. So like my course is, you know, a course that I've developed and had accredited and all that sort of thing. The Carbon Literacy Project have various different toolkits which you can sort of access off the shelf. I think there is now a fee associated with using them, but there is a toolkit for town and parish councils, so you wouldn't have to develop a whole course, you know, yourself in order to be able to deliver that. You just need to, you know, a few people who are happy to deliver it. There either is a community course or there is one coming. I would need to double check that. So again, you wouldn't necessarily have to sort of create your own course to be able to do that, because that's often the big stumbling block, is putting together 8 hours worth of training. So but as I said, there is, I think, a cost involved with those. So and I off the top of my head, you'd need to speak to the Carbon Literacy Project to find out what those were. And then the idea is really, I mean, they talk about within sort of big organizations, like I was chatting to somebody earlier who's in conversation with like BT about, you know, rolling out training for 40,000 employees. The idea is that within organizations that you can, they talk about cascading out the training so that you have, you know, maybe one external person who comes and delivers it to a cohort of people. They do the training, they then go and deliver it, and, you know, so that it kind of cascades out like that. So it's, I guess, about finding people who are confident to deliver it. And, you know, I certainly think maybe getting people who would be happy to do something in pairs, or, you know, so you could have a more experienced person so that you can sort of train people up in that sort of context. I think getting people who are really comfortable engaging with people and facilitating that sort of thing, because I've been on some carbon literacy courses that have been dull as ditch water, and 8 hours of dull sustainability training is really dull. Do you know? So, and that switches people off. So I think the important thing is ensuring that you've got a really, you know, good batch of kind of first facilitators who can then sort of confidently cascade that out.
My initial thought, it would be a paid group of people who would be paid to do it. So professional people to do it.
And it might be worth getting in touch with, I don't know if you come across Save Our Shropshire.
No.
I think it's Save Our Shropshire. I'll find the link and I'll pop it into the chat. But they've done a lot on a sort of, I think they might, if there is, in my head, there is a community course and they helped to develop it. So we'll need to double check that. I haven't dreamt that. But they're, to my understanding, they're a similar group to sort of WCA, and that they've you know, been able to sort of develop the training, roll it out. I think they also do some training. You know, it depends whether you want to make this a training that people have to pay for to come and attend, or whether you want it to be sort of free at the point of delivery, all those sorts of things. But they'd definitely be worth getting in touch with to get the benefit of their experience, I think.
Yeah, Jen, that'd be really helpful if you could send that through. My initial thoughts would be it'd be paid professionals delivering the training as a result of us getting a grant, and so on. And ideally, I think it's really important to follow that up with support. And then so ideally we'd have a team of supporters who could help people to get certain projects or those promises or whatever off the ground. Do you know, so anybody who's done it before would be really useful, and then we'd have meetings with them and just to try and learn the lessons before we even start putting even a bid in.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said about providing that support afterwards, I think would be really, really helpful. I'm very aware that, you know, people come to me and I deliver 8 hours of training, of quite emotionally intense training, and they submit their pledges and that's all great, and then off they go. And I do have a Facebook group that people can come and use, but it's very, very quiet, and you know, some mechanism for bringing people together to be able to keep the momentum going, I think would be really helpful. And to you know, if there are people who are wanting to do a particular type of project in their community, to be able to hook them up with somebody else in another community in Wiltshire doing it, I think that would be really, really really helpful, and help mean that good intentions do actually turn into actions.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much, Jen. I don't know, Bill. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, go on, Bill.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen. Brilliant description you've given us so far. I think it's around the things you've just been saying, and Christian has been saying too, because I guess I see this great thing of training people, but you know, I've been trained, I've given training, and the problem is, unless you practice what you have learned in that training, it all disappears in the end and becomes and I just wonder how you feel about leading that group of, because you're doing quite a lot of people, so you can't expect, you know, I don't know how many people you're training in a year, but you'll be training an awful lot of people. There's no way of dipping back in. I think one of the things we need to think very carefully about is how we, as Chris was saying, how we can get it back in, how we can actually help them along their journey more once they've swallowed all the information and thought about it. Maybe have a follow-up meeting, maybe do something else. I don't know, but it's really, really important for us to actually carry it forward and see a change, because Wiltshire Climate Alliance was formed to help people deal with climate change. And this is ideal. What you're describing is absolutely what we need to be doing. But just talking about it, as we well know, doesn't do anything. You've got to get on and actually do something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that people have to think about actions, you know, they have to sort of quantify whether they're going to be low, medium or high. They have to say exactly what they're going to do, what a greenhouse, like the fact that you have to do that and sit and write it down and get it submitted and things. I think there's all sorts of research, isn't there, about the goal setting and writing things down. You know, I think people are, because you have to actually think of action, come up with it. That's a step. But I completely agree with you, having some support, and whether that's so there's a brilliant woman called Kate, and her surname's gone out, but she's based in Japan, I think, and she runs a lot of online carbon literacy training, and so she has like I don't know if it's every other month, but like a sort of it's not a climate cafe because they're a specific thing, aren't they, about eco-anxiety, but a sort of carbon literacy cafe drop-in, so that people can come if they want additional support, if there's something they're struggling with, if they want another boost of motivation, all those sorts of things. So it could be something as kind of relatively informal as that, because some people do just want to come and do it and then, you know, are quite happy getting on and sort of actioning their thing and making it happen. Other people will really appreciate the support. And I think one of the things I found is that when you do the training, you know, whether it's online and even more so in person, you bring a group of people together, and it forms for those 8 hours this lovely community. So then being able to have some mechanism whereby that community feel, you know, that group is able to feed into a bigger group, and that community feel grows, because one of the things that we're all probably very aware of is that lots of people wanting to do stuff in their business or in their organization feel very lonely often, because it can feel like they're the only person. So providing some mechanism for people to feel supported, I think is really, really important. But I'm not aware of anyone providing something much more formal afterwards.
Okay. Oh, it's the other side of it I'm thinking of is, you know, from a personal perspective, I get trained, and then I want to take it into my village.
Mhm.
So I then create a carbon literacy or a climate literacy group in the village that then takes that out more into the village and into the school and whatever, so that the village starts working around the whole thing.
Yeah. So you've got that group who have that, you know, baseline level of understanding, and then, you know, you then as a group could put together like an hour's you know, condensed session that could be delivered to the WI within your village, or delivered to the scouts within your village, or whatever, and so that you're sort of spreading that knowledge and thinking about how you can and you know, the training itself is almost an excuse or a mechanism to bring the interested people in the village together.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly that. Because you're surprised when you start asking those sort of questions in the village, how many people actually do pop up and say, yeah, I'm interested in that, but nobody's
but don't feel like they know enough to talk about it. Don't feel like they know enough to really know what the big things are they should be doing and what they should be focusing on. And there's all this contradictory information. So by bringing them together and just saying, you know, here it is, here's what you need to know. The one of the biggest outcomes really, I think, is that confidence to be able to talk about it and to be able to sort of make more informed decisions, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
No worries. Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. That's really interesting. I'm just a quick question, hopefully, is around how you engage. You sort of alluded to that just now, but about engaging with groups. I mean, how do you reach out to these groups, particularly from the community, whatever? Do you have a poster up and say, turn up, or
no, I mean, majority of mine is online. And so, you know, I've got quite a big online community, and I just use my social media platforms in order to get people to come. You know, and mine, I charge for them. The North Somerset Council I did some training for them for their community groups. When was it? Maybe end of 2022. And they sort of had a list of community groups that they thought would be vaguely interested, and they sort of went out to them. And the difficulty often, you know, when it was just a one-off, is trying to get all the right people in the right room at the same time. We did a day's training. You know, and I guess sometimes the thing is, when you offer a training for free, like, people don't really appreciate it. So, you know, thinking about, so the certification costs £10 per head. So it might be that you decide as an organization that you want to charge people that £10 a head, because it kind of makes them respect the course a little bit, makes them more likely to turn up, makes them more likely to submit their form at the end of it, all those sorts of things. Or you might want to do it as a, you know, if you really want to offer it for free, that it's a refundable deposit or whatever, but, you know, some way of ensuring that people do actually come along and value the course, if that makes sense. But yeah, in terms of reaching out to communities, that, you know, Wiltshire Council may have, I don't know, they may have a master list of groups and things, but it probably would be just you know, relying on local contacts to be, and sometimes the thing that often works the best is literally going up to people and go, you know, literally face to face. So as somebody in my community who was doing a tree planting weekend, and she was really worried nobody in her village would turn up. So she literally was on her dog walk and going, are you going to come? Are you going to come? Can you come? And then people, and like 30 or 40 people turned up. Whereas if you just put out a generic, will people come and help on Facebook, everyone thinks you're talking to somebody else, or, oh, it's okay because someone else will turn up. But if you actually go on that, you know, it's slow and painful, but sometimes that can be the most effective way of getting people you know, on board and coming to something like that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, for instance, parish councils, you know, you could sit in a, you know, village hall, and, you know, one man and his dog turns up or something like that. But so it is trying to reach out.
Parish councils, I did have a chat with Wiltshire Council last year about you know, delivering this for town and parish councils, and we were talking about, you know, a day somewhere relatively central and inviting the town clerks from each of the town and parish councils, and any interested councillors who wanted to come, and they were like, well, probably Bradford-on-Avon will come, and they reeled off another couple of, people that will come. And I think if you can get a few to start with, then the others are like, oh, hold on a minute. And that bit of, competition between the towns and things kicks in. So it might be that if you can get a few to do it and then be sort of raving about it and talking about it, especially if they then come up with some exciting scheme where they've saved money, that sort of thing, that can often be helpful for town and parish councils, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Andrew, I think you had, oh, sorry, Tony, go on.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Andrew, I think you were next and then Jackie.
Well, I slipped behind Jackie. Jackie?
Oh, okay, go for it, Jackie.
Hello. I just wanted to say that it's Jen's
Hiya.
fault that I'm here at all. I went on her training last May and it completely changed my life, because not only did it get me, I appreciate that all of you know far more about climate change already than I did then, but it was not just the facts and figures for me. It was the learning how to have those conversations with people who aren't interested in talking about it, and also lots of resources as to learn how to have those conversations, and also how to cope with the anxiety and the stress and the frustration of the world we currently live in. There's, that nobody's listening. We're all worried sick, but it's like, and I did go on a very interesting webinar yesterday where they pointed out that change happens not only when you appreciate the need for change, but when you understand that the other people in your community also appreciate the need for change. And to me, it was a bit of a wake-up call, because it was like when we were under COVID conditions, when did we wear a mask or not? We should be wearing a mask early on, but it was really difficult to do so if you were the only person in the shop who was wearing a mask. Once you could look around and see two other people wearing a mask, it was like, well, why aren't the rest? And I feel like if there's enough people in our community happy to talk in an educated way, and our community, I mean Market Lavington, Devizes High Street, happy to talk about it, then it'll be, and posters up in waiting rooms and things, then it'll be a lot easier for people to accept the current situation and move from being either ignoring it or being frightened to talk about it to actually taking action as a community.
And Jackie's like, you were saying, like, how do we make sure that people go on and do stuff afterwards? Well, we can't really. We can support them and facilitate them to do it. And there's a percentage of people who will do the course and feel inspired for 2 days and then life takes over again. And then at the other end of the extreme, there will be people like Jackie who have gone, bloody hell, and then found their own tribe or created their own tribe or, made change happen in their workplace, all those sorts of things. So there will be a spectrum of people, and we can't expect everybody to be as amazing as Jackie after doing their training. But, if you can get, one Jackie out of every 10 people, you'd be absolutely nailing it. Go on, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Jen. You've given us a load of information. It's been brilliant. And I'm aware that you may have another meeting to go to. So I just wanted to ask you one thing. I'm glad you let on that the training can be fairly emotionally intense. Perhaps it's transformational for some people. And I just wondered if you could switch into something very subjective. If you can remember any treasured moments when people somehow expressed what a difference it had made to them, or anything like that, what it had inspired them to do, or what they'd realized that they hadn't before. Yeah.
I mean, I've literally, one that really stands out, like, a woman like literally in tears because she just realized, I think we've been talking about flying and the disproportionate impact of that and that sort of thing, and she was really brave because she was like really acknowledging that kind of, but that's my holiday and I work really, really hard for my holiday, and why shouldn't I have my holiday when, the usual Prince Harry, Taylor Swift, all those sorts of things are, Rishi Sunak's flying here, there and everywhere. but now I feel really uncomfortable in that. So she was really brave at sort of articulating that discomfort that probably a lot of people were feeling. I think it's just some of it, like there is real gaps in people's knowledge. You know, the sort of varieties under the like greenhouse gas and often, you know, why would you know, we never get taught that sort of thing at school. And then, you know, asking people to rank, I don't know, carbon footprint of different foods or the energy saving from various activities and that sort of thing. And it always just sparks lots of conversation and discussion. And the climate impact thing, I think, is really uncomfortable. The climate justice thing is really uncomfortable, but sparks a lot of discussion and thought processes and all those sorts of things. And then you know, people like somebody, I just had the last couple of ones that have just come in, like people, you know, somebody who family live in Ireland, I think, and she's in the UK, normally does 4 return flights to Ireland a year, and she was like, well, I'm just going to do 1 this year. Like, you know, that's that on the, you know, you sort of think, oh, well, you know, should she even be flying? Well, she needs to go see her family and all those. But, you know, there are things that people recognize in their own lives and sort of changes that they go on to make, but where people then also kind of step into their, I talk a lot about spheres of influence and a lot about, you know, this idea of like the climate shadow, the idea that there's your footprint and your carbon footprint, but then your shadow is all these conversations you have and all these things that you're seen to be doing and stuff, and people really recognizing that influence and sort of stepping into that and then going on. And so doing the course with the developing the course with Bloomsbury, that's because their sustainability lead came on my course, and then she was like, right, I want to roll this out in my organization. And so all these kind of ripples that happen, and some of them are really small and I never hear about, and some of them are much bigger and sort of, you know, lead to lots more people being trained and lots more actions being taken. But that was very waffly because I can't remember any specific ones that stand out off the top of my head, but I mean, Jackie would be an amazing example, really.
That's really spot on, thank you, that's fabulous. Folks, Jen told us beforehand that she has to go into another meeting at 8.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, I've got an 8 o'clock.
We've given you 5 minutes for your comfort break and
Don't worry.
your stretching exercises. But I'm sure this won't be.
I'll find that link to Shropshire and pop that in the chat before I go. And then if, you know, if any other questions do come up, then, you know, Jackie, please do feel free to pass my email on, and I'm, you know, very happy to have a go at answering them.
Thank you very much indeed, Jen. Thanks.
All right. Cheers, guys. Lovely to meet you all.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So let's take a minute to orient ourselves and think about that and how we go into our breakout groups. Julian, is it going to be you that sorts that out for us?
Can be. Or you, Chris?
I've got it ready here for four rooms. So that's about 5 or 6 in each one.
6, including 2 copies of Beanland.
Oh yes.
But both of you will have.
Are you off? Bye, Hazel. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Hazel.
Hi, can I just quickly point out that Jen was very humbly failed to point out that she's written the most wonderful book, which is the Guide to the Sustainable-ish Living, so that we all do the best we can. Widely published, very popular and very helpful. So that's the Sustainable-ish Living Guide. So highly recommend it.
Great.
You're very sweet, Jackie. I'm going to
thank you, Jackie.
put that link in the
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks, Jackie, for inviting her along. So who's doing this bit?
We are.
Yeah. John.
Thanks, Rosemary.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Can we agree roughly what we're going to be getting out of these breakout groups, Chris?
Okay, now
what do we want?
I've noted down is 2 things really. To look at where you might see carbon literacy training be delivered to most effect in the county. Where do you think is it going to be most effective, or in which sector, if you like, not necessarily which geographical location? Do you think it'll be might be most effective in Wiltshire and Swindon? Please remember, our goal is to cut greenhouse gas emissions in the county. So our focus for any training and support needs to be on areas that will really make a difference and also to discuss what it would entail for you to volunteer, to, well, take the training, but possibly give the training or support in any other way. So just to repeat those two breakout room points, your view on where or in what sector we might best deliver this sort of training. I mean, there's parish councils, there's businesses and so on. And also, what about you, you personally, your role? Would you like to take the training? Would you like to take it and then give the training? All right, we've
Andrew,
got.
can I just add a bit? Would you mind? Can I encourage people to have a little bit of blue sky thinking? In other words, imagine we were given an enormous amount of money to be able to deliver this. Okay, because that's possible. Okay, it is unlikely, but it's possible. So don't sort of, how would it look like if we had quite a lot of money to be able to pay to deliver this in various different sectors? Hope you don't mind me adding that in. We may not do that. It may be that we have to do it all voluntarily and all that kind of stuff. But let's have a look at it also as well if it's big, because we are thinking about putting a bid in for quite a lot of money.
Okay.
And part of this is to help us to put together a bid, if that makes sense. So the end product of the ideas of where the carbon trading could be best and most effectively used and so on, then may well be transformed or transferred into a bid to the lottery fund or whatever for that. So this is what we're looking at. What's going to make the most difference for carbon? So, sorry, Andrew, I just wanted to add that bit because that's why we may well be using it for this conversation.
Okay, no, I think that was an excellent suggestion. Think big then. And in each of your groups of 4 or 5, I hope there'll be, if one of you could think in terms of being willing to take physical or mental notes so that we can get reports back after we rejoin. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the main room. That was nicely done. And we were group 4, if I remember rightly. And I think Bill is willing to report back when we come to our group. But does anyone remember who was in group 1 and who wants to report back?
Come on, Richard.
And Christian, thanks.
No, well, Richard, do you put your hand up?
No, well, I was just saying we were in group 1, but Jackie took the notes, bless her.
Where's Jackie? There she is. You're muted, Jackie.
I know. I said I thought I'd got out of that. I think we all thought it was a good idea. Derek Walters was concerned as to whether the Wiltshire Council should be doing, should be making sure they're getting the training, and we believe that that is being organised in-house, and they will be having their own carbon literacy. So we were then looking at expanding it out to town councils, parish councils, maybe more area boards rather than, or groups of parish councils, depending on what was more appropriate. A big, massive area would be looking at business owners, both large businesses, and then also the smaller businesses, getting them together, perhaps working through chambers of commerce. But obviously, as Keith found on his previous survey, businesses are responsible for a very large proportion of the emissions in Wiltshire. So it's to get them on board and looking at them getting carbon literacy for their employees would be fantastic. We touched on schools, and then looking at other places we can reach people in the community. Perhaps looking at, for example, schools, we thought perhaps Duke of Edinburgh scheme. And then as we were just finishing off, the idea of actually offering talks to any community group, basically an hour's interesting introduction to just start the conversations and spread the news.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to add to that. So, Jackie, you covered 99% of it, but for me, I'm trying to work out how we're going to put a bid together, and some of that is about who are our partners in that bid, and it's people like Community First who kind of coordinate a lot of kind of community action and stuff like that. And if we had them on board with Wiltshire Council as our main partners in putting together that bid, we're far more likely to succeed. and so on. So that's just my takeaway. Thank you, Jack.
Should I do group 2 quickly?
Yes, please.
So we spent quite a bit of time talking about farmers because several people were involved with that. And we thought that as part of the thing in Wiltshire, possibly a course tailored for farmers would be really valuable. Obviously sensitively tailored, but helping farmers understand where their real impacts come from, because a lot of them are really keen to reduce their footprint, and they've started off trying to reduce their fertilizers and their fuel, but not necessarily thought about the complete picture. And a personal approach has been very effective with the local farmer in Swindon, where he's, he was very keen, and it just took the suggestion that think about methane as well, and he's gone off and done a real lot of thinking about it, and some work is already happening in that area. So that was one thing. But also we need to look at the consumer side, of course, and that we've got the consumer versus producer side there. And finally, talking about the personal role that people wanted to do. Everyone wanted to do the training. Jane thought she would find someone in her group who could help to cascade things. Kate wanted to look at cascading into schools. And Jez wanted to do the training and sort of work out how he might cascade it, and I'm sort of similar, really. That's us. Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you. Some common themes emerging: schools and farms and so on. Let's move on then. Was that group 2? Group 3 have we got? But Bean, which group were you in? No, you were in group 1 or 2, weren't you?
Well, I was actually in 2 groups in the end. I was in a group on my own, which I was then joined by somebody right at the end, who was a new arrival. I'm afraid I didn't catch his name, and I was in a group with somebody else. But I could only chat in the group that I was in with other people because I couldn't speak. Anyway, my new laptop's arrived, so I'm going to fix all these problems for next time. Look, I think the priority surely has to be people who've got real influence. So you've got to start at the top. So I think you've got to educate the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. Because they're the two that don't actually understand what's going on at the moment. And then cascade down from that. So I would go for the MPs within the WCA sphere of influence, and then work your way down the chain of command, as it were. Because clearly, we've all got limited resources. We have to use them where best we can make an impact. Just sort of on a starting point, as I told you, I was part of a sort of delegation for Great Bedouin that met with Danny Kruger a couple of weeks ago, specifically to talk about Bedouin. But he's asked me to go and talk to him about various other things later in the month. So he's showing an interest in these things, which is, I think, positive. So I shall be going along, and I shall encourage him to pass on whatever I talk to him about to the rest of his colleagues, because there are sort of unofficial county groupings amongst MPs. So I've addressed the Devon group of Tory MPs, for example. So there are potentially opportunities that arise where you can actually get a number of them in a room, in a virtual room, and do something constructive for a number. So that's my 3 pennyweight.
Thank you, Bean. And for anyone who doesn't know, HPF is Heat Pumps Federation. Bean, you do a lot of work for the industry and to promote the general concept of heat pumps as a good thing. So before, I'm a bit muddled about who's reporting from which groups. So let me ask Derek, who's got his hand up, to have your say. Derek, yes?
Oh, hello. Well, it's just basically in response to Bean. Hello, Bean. Essentially you're talking about educating from the top down, working from the top down, and I would say that Wiltshire councillors fit that bill, because as far as I'm aware, the rollout of the training that I haven't heard about it, so I suspect it's just down to the officers of the council, not at the moment the councillors themselves. And I'm also trying to organise a visit from you, Bean, to come and talk to the councillors, because I think that would be very valuable too. So yeah, I fully agree with that approach.
Thanks, Derek. That's very constructive.
Derek, sorry, Andrew, can I just ask a quick question? Derek.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely sure that councillors are not being carbon literacy trained?
I'm not saying that I'm absolutely certain, but I'm not aware of it. So,
and you're a councillor?
I am a councillor. I will go off and I will find out. Okay.
The reason I'm asking is because we're being told by the climate team that you're all being trained. So if
yeah, no,
if you're not, then we're bloody challenging.
Right. I gather you've been talking to Lynn. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay.
I think Lynn reports to Sarah Valdus, who's the director.
Yeah, right,
so I'll have a word with Sarah and see what she's got to say.
Derek, could you report back to us, because this is really quite key.
Yeah, we'll do.
So if either to Bill or me or Andrew or whatever, send an email to contact. Because quite frankly, it's really frustrating because we were told that one thing, and my blood is slightly boiling from what you just told us.
Please don't go off on one yet.
No, I won't. We'll just hang fire.
But I think, to be fair, they said they had a plan. I don't think they necessarily said that they'd actually offered it yet. So,
but just so last time we met them, or last time I met them, because you guys met them in March, I met them in October, I think it was, and they then said they'd already trained over 100 people. That was their statement. Now, whether what they're saying now, I have no idea. But of 3,500 people plus councillors, that's a way to go. Yeah.
Okay, I'll find out and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Thanks. And after this, after we finish dealing with this, I will try a little report on our update with Wiltshire Council, which will partly be a non-update because they were going to send us an update that hasn't come through. Jez.
Yeah, thanks. Well, just to report that I was with the Trowbridge Grandmas, who do a sort of occupancy outside the county hall monthly, I think, on a Thursday or Tuesday or whatever it is. And the question they ask everyone who walks in is, have you done the literacy training? And what do you think of it, if they've done it? And this very smart gentleman appeared with highly polished shoes. And the question went up, have you done literacy training? Have I done what? Literacy training. I've never heard of it. I don't know. Well, the first question I asked actually was, what department are you in? I'm in legal. I thought, right, here we go. This should be interesting. And hadn't even heard of it. He said it must be in a lost email in my junk file. He said he was going to go and look for it, but who knows?
To be honest, it's a bit of a reflection where we are everywhere. There's a lot of talk and sometimes less action than we're
Let's crack on.
Can I report on Group 4 before we go any further?
Yes, have we had Group 3? I'm muddled. We had Group Bean. Group 4, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
If anyone admits to Group 3, then do also report.
Yeah, please do. Sorry. So we started out looking at sectors, and we came up with four sectors really: transport, schools, parish councils, and farming. And then we talked around how we would actually approach those sectors, and what does approaching transport mean as a sector, and how are we going to do that? And it's actually quite difficult. Then we fell down into, well, what is transport? And we talked about cars and schools and how that linked together. And then we looked at the parish councils and things like that, and realised actually almost at the end of our 15 minutes that what we should be focusing on, I understand the business thing, and that's really difficult, but every community group has a mix of people who go to school, use cars, etc., etc. So we should actually be focusing on as many community groups as we can. And getting back to somebody else who said we'll give them an hour's talk on it, I think that's a really good place to go. And those who are more interested, when you give them the hour talk, we can carry on to the full score and use the literacy training to bring more people in who are trained. So, but I think out of all that discussion, there's lots of stuff in it. Reaching out to parents, talking about the curriculum, talking about how we get to farmers. But it all comes down to those people are all part of the community, as are the parish council, etc., etc. So I just think at the end of it all, that's where I got to. And I think, we talked about the NHS as another example of another community. So, but those people live in our community. So focusing on community is actually a really, really strong thing to do. But having said all of that, we've got to focus on communities who then can deliver something. Because I keep saying all the time, it's great to train people, but delivery is what we want from all of these people we're training, one way or another. Whether they have less flights, or whether they have individually, or they're convincing half of their friends not to go in a car to school and use the walking bus, as Andrew suggested. You know, how you want to get those pledges into reality, not just a pledge. I went to a parish council thing that the Wiltshire Council set up a year and a half ago. And I'm not a parish councillor, but I went anyway. And I watched all these parish councils committing to a pledge, because CSE ran the course and they said, yeah, you could have a pledge. So everyone had a pledge. And I asked CSE afterwards, and how are you going to check that they've done their pledges? Oh, we'll have another meeting. Never been asked to another one. So how we know anybody's actually delivered any of that, other than perhaps they have. So, but I think that's the other point that Jen was saying, you know, follow up, try and work out whether people are doing things. You know, it's a massive, massive task for us to set up to do all of this, but I think we have the will, so we should just get on with it. Okay, I think that's me spouting, but that was from Group 4, the fact that actually communities are the thing.
I should probably pipe up for Group 3 because yeah, we had been on the chat. Most of the things have been mentioned already. We too focused on community groups. The 8 hours was daunting in a community context, but we talked about the idea of a 1 hour taster a couple of times as well, and the importance of having the eager, enthusiastic, advocating people to go on and take the training. So whilst it would be fantastic if those with levers of power were the enthusiastic advocates, in the absence of that, enthusiastic advocates in the community is still useful. I think is where I would sort of summarize it at. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else got anything to add from their groups or from this ensuing discussion then? Tony?
Yeah, I think on the small business side of things, one thing that occurred to me when we were talking is that there are small businesses probably are going to have to comply with legislation and also supply chain demands over their carbon emissions. So it seemed there may well be lots of little companies out there, and I've read about this in the past, companies who are struggling to really know where to start and what to do. And maybe this, something that's tailored to their needs might be a very helpful way of actually engaging with them. And obviously then you've got the staff. So there is a sort of ripple effect that could come out of that as well.
Yes, yes, indeed. Richard.
So,
yeah, and maybe that's not necessarily the job for Wiltshire Climate Alliance or our team, because there's lots of outfits out there already that are providing that service to businesses. So it's signposting as well. There are consultants all over the place that can help businesses achieve their net zero goals, for example. Funnily enough, my cousin is one of them. Net Zero Now is his business, but specifically for business organizations. So we might not necessarily have to do the whole thing. We can work with others to make sure that it happens. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yes. I think on the one hand, we all hope that this is going to go viral and that it cascades. On the other hand, I want to say it's a bit like hitchhiking. Even if 1 in 100 cars stop for you, you get where you're going in the end. So if we write to the 233 parish councils in Wiltshire and the 19 parish councils in Swindon, and 1 in 100 it initially expresses an interest, that's already 2 or 3 parish councils we're dealing with. Same applies to medium-sized businesses. Same might apply to schools and PTAs. So I think we need to make a start and then see how well we get going. Bill.
I'm just going to say we need a plan, don't we? Because there's a lot to do here, and lots of ideas bashing around. So I actually think we need a plan, Chris, and I think we need to get a team together to get that plan working or starting to develop it properly, because it really is. It's a big task, and there's a lot to be done, and I think we just need to get on with it.
Yeah.
I just want to say that that's going to happen very slowly if it's only steering group members. So anyone else who's feels enthused by this, even if you're not ready to wave your hand today, but feel welcome to do that, we'll be coming at you to ask you, to appeal to you to get on board in any way, however small. And so we may be writing to individual Wiltshire Climate Alliance members, to our member groups, to try and put a little plan together, to put a team together and plan on from there. So we've got Jackie and Chris, please.
Jackie?
I just wanted, I probably said it before, but I just wanted to say all this is very daunting, and we know it's going to be hard talking to people who don't want to talk about it. Our own village has just had orchard wars where they try to have a community orchard, and you wouldn't believe the negativity. But the whole point of the literacy training is it gives you tools to cope with the difficulty of people fighting, being very negative and being nasty. And also we'd be doing it, I think if we could do it as a team together, so we support each other, that would also make it a lot easier. Because if it was easy, we'd have done it already. You've been doing a fantastic job for 4 years, communicating the need for climate change. We're now having to communicate to people who don't really want to listen. So,
Jackie, I think it might be worth kind of bringing people up to speed about a couple of things. So, Jackie, where have you gone? You've gone. You were talking about the fact that Jen was willing to provide training for free. So normally there's a cost associated. Do you want to talk about that and see if anybody here is interested? Because it's a bit of a trial go at it, and what we might be looking at possibly rolling out across Wiltshire, that kind of what we've just been talking about. Anyway, Jackie, if I can, is that all right to ask you to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had obviously, because she was my coach, I had a conversation after the Wiltshire Council idea that we would roll it out. And she very kindly, she talked me through various aspects and what's been happening in other counties. And she offered to give us free training, about 20 people usually on a course. And that would normally cost nearly £100 each, because it's very intensive. And I think that would just be such a wonderful kickoff for us to take part to the training together, know what's involved. Part of our training will be the pledges that we make as a group to make changes in Wiltshire. And we'll have the support of each other as this core group to go forward, both in our own communities that we work with, but also, moving this project forward.
Yeah, and tell you what, and it's really good to see Derek. So I know you're going to be doing it, you should be doing it as part of the council stuff. And in the chat, you said you might be interested. I take it you might be interested in joining us in that training. And that because the purpose of doing that trial bit where Jen would come and train a few of us would be to kind of get a feel, is this right for Wiltshire? And how could we use this kind of thing in Wiltshire? And then we would then also have to consider there's different types of training. It's, this carbon literacy isn't the only type of training out there. There's other types of climate change training and so on. But it'd be good to have a counsellor or two join that at the same time, so we can get your views on that. Jackie, do you reckon that's right? Do you think? Yeah, you know.
I don't see why not. I mean, we just want this to fly, basically.
Yeah.
And
Well-
interesting enough, Derek, if you did that, if you did our training before you did your council training, you could be waving the flag in the council anyway, saying, you know, why aren't we doing more of it?
Well, that's right. I mean, I have been in the past a bit of a pest as far as some of the members of the council are concerned, in that I've been, you know, questioning them quite heavily about things like reports that have been delayed. I am now a vice chair of the Environment Select Committee, so I have, you know, a degree of authority over all of the elements, if you like, within the council that aren't considered to be people. So planning, highways, etc. So yeah, I mean, I'd be interested, and certainly I'm just sending an email to Sarah Valdus, who is the director for climate, and asking her for an update that I can give to you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's great. Andrew, who don't mind if I'm going to give people a quick update around Ruth and the fact that we've got more money available, and the fact that the steering group has decided to. So I mentioned earlier on, so now the most we ever had in the bank was a couple of thousand. Thanks to very much your donations and stuff like that, the odd fiver here and there, and that was really helpful. Now that we've got around about just over 20,000, it's enabling us to pay someone with admin. So because we have been, some of us are a little bit tired, and answering all the emails that come in and so on becomes a bit difficult, and so on. So so Ruth, who helped us run the Green Open Homes. So if anybody here had a Green Open Home, will have had emails from Ruth. She did a superb job. So it's been agreed that she will take on part one of the role is basically keeping Wiltshire Climate Alliance ticking over and keeping us professional. The second half of that will be to maybe, and we need to decide as a steering group, is to put a bid in for some substantial funding to make things happen. Okay, that changes the way that Wiltshire Climate Alliance operates. We then become quite big. So, for example, the bid I was talking about from the lottery funding, the minimum bid for that is £500,000. Okay, but when you look at, if you want a professional group of trainers and some project support after that to run for 2 to 3 years, that's what you're talking about at least. So if that's what we want to do, then let's put a bid in, and you need a professional person to help to pull together that bid. So and I think there's a potential here for Wiltshire Climate Alliance to really start to make a difference, really to start impacting on the carbon emissions from Wiltshire. So that's what we're looking at. And I just, if that's okay, could we just get people's initial reactions to that kind of feel? Is this the right thing for WCA to start bidding for substantial bids so that we can make a difference, or any views basically? Margaret, go on. Yeah. Andrew?
I hadn't planned on unmuting. I was just putting my thumb up. Yes. Good idea. We either remain a talking shop, which does nothing, or we start throwing some money at it and make things happen. And money, after all, is not carbon.
Yeah.
And it's carbon we got to sort.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to report towards the end of this meeting, which is coming now, about our update on steering group recent meeting with some Wiltshire climate people. But this fits right in because they were going to send us an update, hopefully before this meeting. They haven't quite managed that, so I can't update you on their update. A lot of the conversation, we were going to talk about comms, but neither their comms person or our comms person was able to make it. So we ended up talking about carbon literacy, in fact. I suggested, half tongue in cheek, that we get some trainers and then go into Wiltshire Council to train their councillors and staff at a much faster rate. Because I pointed out that if they're training 80 people or 100 people a year, what with staff turnover, it could take them 30 years before they've trained everyone. And I think the climate emergency is going to be rather done and dusted by them. They weren't receptive to that. They did say they're focusing initially on quality and not just quantity of people. I believe they've trained all the heads of service, all the directors now. And I believe, Derek, that they may have trained all the cabinet members. Of course, with councillors, elected councillors, you can lead a lot of horses to water. You can't necessarily make them drink. But I think they're definitely taking this top-down approach. And I was interested to hear from Jez that's a lot of people in the middle and basic ranks haven't even heard of this, which I think is a shame. But one key thing I want to say is an answer of at a personal level to Christian's question. They recognised that Wiltshire Climate Alliance has what they think of as a dual role. We can be partners of theirs, helping and supporting them, getting them to help and support us with what we do, with what they do. But they recognise what they call scrutiny of Wiltshire Council. I know that Derek and select committees do scrutiny from within, but what they call scrutiny, I might call campaigning, lobbying, rallies even, demos, channeling the frustration and anger of our members, actively opposing policies that Wiltshire Council are implementing, calling them to account, getting them to change their policies. That's what they were calling scrutiny in a very civil servant sort of way. But I think of it as a rather stronger thing. And I think for me, that feels that I don't want us to lose that, but that is compatible with getting these big grants and doing these big, rather effective things. That's where I'm coming from in answer to Christian. So we got Richard and Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Margaret, I hear what you're saying. I think over the last 4 years, we've been a bit more than just a talking shop. I would say that. I think we've been a bit more effective than that. I think, you know, a lot of people have put a lot of work in, and I think we've had an impact, certainly within the council. You know, they recognise the value of having what I would call a critical friend. You know, we're not just bashing them all the time, only some of the time. You know, we are supportive of their targets and their goals to a degree. You know, they're not radical enough for my personal liking, but you know, we want them to succeed in getting the county to, you know, to be carbon neutral by whatever date. But I think as an organization, we have to go to the next stage, don't we? We've been around for 4 years. We see it with a lot of community organizations like this. You have an initial burst of enthusiasm, you do some stuff, but then there's natural I won't say decline, but it's just people have other priorities and whatever. So we have to find another niche, I think, in order to continue to be effective. And I think this is potentially that niche whereby we have some funding, we have some backing, we get some professionalism, takes a bit of the pressure off the hardworking steering group, because it is hard work being a volunteer steering group, very hard work, which is much appreciated, by the way. And this is perhaps that avenue whereby we can continue to be effective, even more effective, by having some fun, some professionalism, and actually getting some stuff done as a result of that. That would be my take on it.
Next, please. Next, please.
Okay, was you, Chris, or me?
No. I should lower my hand. It's yours.
Okay. Well, firstly, I'll put my hand up to say, you know, yes, I'm in. So just because you were asking that question. Second, I was going to speak to Margaret privately and beat her up, because actually, yes, we have been a talking shop, and actually, what some of us are doing, certainly through COVID, was literacy training to the people that joined. So we have done a lot there. We've done an awful lot in between. Lots and lots of stuff has been done. You know, we've challenged the local plan 3 times. We've done all sorts of stuff. We put out things for solar, we put out things for wind turbines. So we've done a lot. So it's a bit disrespectful to say that we've been just a talking shop, although we do a lot of talking. But I pick up what Richard's saying, and I agree with that. I think we have to find a different way to take this group forward now. And I think focus on a project is what we're very, very good at. So like last year, we took the local plan and we took it apart and put it back together again and sent them a bloody out response. And that was a project, and we got 12 people engaged with it, and it worked really well. So we've got to do the same sort of thing with this. And Richard told me to use this word, but it's looking at a business here. It's going to do something, maybe a community interest company or something, but it will be a business. And that's a step that we need to work out very carefully how WCA and WCA business work and all of that stuff. I think, but we've got to do it. I think we have, personally, I don't think we've got a choice. We've just got to get on with it. Okay, I'll shut up again.
Yes, we've got to step up.
Yeah, Keith.
Hi. I've run some big projects in my business career in the past, and you know, to make a project successful, you need to be working from the basis of a foundation, which is really the nuts and bolts and the organization and the people and the structure that makes a business. And so if we're realistically considering a £500,000 project running over 3 years that's going to deliver professionally carbon literacy training across whichever sectors we decided want to do that within the county of Wiltshire, then that is a massive step up from what we've done so far. It seems to me the pieces of work we've delivered well, which Bill listed off a few of then, is being when 1 or 2 or 3 of quite often the steering group, perhaps another willing volunteer, have got a head of steam under their cells and put loads and loads of hours in and drawn upon their previously acquired skills and professional organisation ability from their career, and then somehow delivered it in a volunteer way. So I think I'm finding it, the bit I'm finding hard is the believability of going from the sort of organisation I've observed for the last 2 or 3 years to suddenly becoming one where we have a significant turnover business running with a need and responsibility to deliver outcome, and how we would manage and organise that in a way where it didn't mean that all the members of the steering group have to go back to work and become employees of WCA Carbon Literacy Training Delivery Corp, because that doesn't quite feel like the way we'd want to go. So I'm kind of tentatively supportive of it, you know, and I would be happy to myself perhaps go to a business that was funded by funding to deliver that purpose, delivery of carbon literacy training, if you could somehow structure that the existing knowledge and skills of the steering group people was to act as real sort of non-executive directors on the board of that organization. So you'd have control and ability to really steer the main direction, but then leave it on a week-to-week basis to finish organising a course for, I don't know, going talking to a plastics moulding company in Chippenham, or going to the Wiltshire WI meeting and delivering a course. Getting people to come along and sit for 8 hours, I think it is, isn't it, to receive a fairly sort of structured carbon literacy training, deliver that in a way that satisfies the needs and requirements of the brand, which is the carbon literacy organisation, make sure the people who are paying for it are happy. All that stuff involves a load of business management, which I would have done 10 years ago, wouldn't I now? So it's sort of, the scope and scale of the step is huge.
I think, yeah, thanks, Keith. We hear your
That's
point.
That's where I am. It's sort of really hard to make the leap that we're going to do that without ending up winning a grant and then not being able to deliver it.
That's all valid stuff. Just one thing, the 8 hours doesn't have to be 8 consecutive hours. They can deliver in 4 + 4 or 2 + 2 + 2 + 2. Let's crack on then. Thanks for that important point. Christian and then Tony.
Yeah. So for me, certain things have happened that makes me feel like the writing's on the wall. So I totally get what you're saying, Keith, and I think someone like you needs to be, if you're willing, on the group that's putting some of this together. So that realism and kind of business acumen and kind of understanding of how enormous a task this might be. But certain things have lined up to tell us that this is what we need to do. So on the one hand, we've been building up slowly but surely. Good ground base, lots of members, and so on. We started to work with partner agencies. The Green Open Homes stuff was a broadening of that, working with people like CSE, the 2 different councils, them funding us, the first time they've funded us, any of those, and so on. Then that meeting that we had with Wiltshire Council saying, we've got to do this training, but we can't. And people who can are those who are eligible to apply for things like lottery funding. They didn't quite say it like that, but reading between the lines, they can't apply for that funding, but we can, but they would be willing to support us. All those things lined up, and the fact that we're also getting a little bit tired and we're needing something to keep us going. All that writing seems to be on the wall, and that's what I'm reading it at. But we need some help. So if there's any new members here who hearing this and saying, yeah, I quite fancy getting stuck in, I want to make a difference. Yeah, there's space on the steering group. We're minus 3 or 4 members on the steering group, and we need people, particularly people with, if I don't mind me saying, with enthusiasm and a little bit of business head on. Because that's helpful, because we're heading a little bit towards businessy kind of work, and so on. Anyway, that's my thing. So I'll shut up. But very helpful. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. Tony.
Yeah, thanks. This is, I wouldn't say it's a bombshell, but it's certainly I think he said, a huge step change that's going on here. I'm just very conscious of the time. And I'm also very conscious that it's such a big issue. We probably need to create space for this to properly absorb what's being presented and to discuss it at another occasion when we have this, the time and space to do that. So maybe, I don't know, if the next members meeting might have a good slot of time for this. And perhaps in between there, some discussions can go on around this, because I think there's some very good points made, particularly by Keith, I think, around this, and just what is the realism of this. And
can I suggest, Tony, to pick that up?
Yeah.
Is before the next members meeting, we need to have got some structure around what we're talking about, and we need to draw the basic plan, our aims, objectives, how we're going to do it, who we need, what the money is, just a very basic outline, so that we can start getting a feel for what we're talking about, because it is a big project. However, £500,000 over 3 years doesn't provide many people, to be honest, in a team. And therefore, we've got to think really carefully about how that business works. Because if you look at some businesses, I would take CSE as an example, they use volunteer groups to do things, and they are paid. So there are mixes there that we've got to consider. I'm not saying I've got any answers yet, but it's all those sorts of things we've got to think about. If we're going to make an impact, we won't do it with one manager and 2 people speaking. We're going to have to make an impact by doing it in a slightly different way. So I think we've got to think very carefully about that. Otherwise, yes, it's a lot of money, but we might burn it all and have no results. So I think we've got to be very careful about how it all works. We do. And I take Keith's point absolutely, having done a few of these big things myself. And I think you have to come with us, Keith, because you're the sensible head, and I'm the big man who wants to win everything.
I don't want to be too sort of much of a doubt. I think having the vision is really great, and I can see that, Christian, you've been through those experiences recently that's given you this sort of vision, which I really like. Having some sort of big vision is great. Then defining what that vision is important, because unless the contributors who are really going to buy in actually share the vision, then having all the
No,
business
absolutely.
foundation stuff is no good.
Yeah.
So
Well,
getting
mustn't
that
forget.
right is important.
Absolutely, Keith, and that's why we sort of need your help on this, if you're willing. But mustn't forget that some of this vision is also that came from Wiltshire Council. They're the ones who reached out to us and asked for some help. That's got to count for something. If we take it on board ourselves, we can shape it ourselves. And the bit for me that shapes it the most is the support that comes with it. Not just doing 8 hours in a classroom. It's absolutely vital that we can push after the training and make sure things happen. So, but that's, you know, so it's like I say, that's the writing on the wall. It's telling us to do it. But
the other writing, the other writing, Christian, was an offer to get a number of us trained free.
Yeah,
that's sort of just lift us into a different place to understand the sort of business we might have to be.
Yeah,
so we're getting trained to work out how to run that thing before we actually get to it. Everything's stacking up.
Thanks, Bill. I'm going to press pause on this whole. Everyone, there's been some very clear views expressed, some very cogent concerns and visions. So it's 9 o'clock, and it's unfair for us to be, you know, 6 or 8 in the steering group and 10 other people all sorting this out tonight at 9 o'clock, which is not what we're saying we're going to do. Bill, you've reminded us this Jen's training is on offer to Wiltshire Climate Alliance and its members and member group leaders. And that's, even if it only went that far, that in itself is something brilliant that's come out of the last month, talking to Jen, talking to Wiltshire Council. If people want to stay on informally a little longer, there was an agenda item, there is an agenda item which is called election work update. We now know that the general election isn't going to be on the 2nd of May. And anyone who wants to report from their groups, but again, it's unfair to you to report to just the tail end of this meeting. So
Andrew, can we, to that end, I mean, I was going to speak to that, but is it worth postponing that till next time?
Let's say that
say a few words, if that helps, you know, to at least
we'll repeat it the next time, put it that way. And see, you got your hand up too. We won't go without you speaking again. Shall we go to Tony right now, or Derek? Anything about this particular issue we've been mulling over?
Yeah, well, the MP hustings thing, I think is moving along gradually. I think there's a couple of things where we need some inputs, but for those who are not familiar with what we're doing at the moment, we are looking at two strands of work. One is to mobilize local groups across the county so that when an election is called, we are in a position to then be able to organise hustings either through our own actions or preferably in association with other organisations, whether councils, schools or whatever. But the idea, I suppose, be to try at least one husting per constituency, if not more. The other strand is, and one that I think keeps getting kicked down the road a little bit, much to Julian's chagrin, I think, is to actually engage now with the MP candidates. And this is when we're talking about the carbon literacy. I mean, I'm just thinking, well, actually, we might have something that we could offer to the MP candidates. Whether they'd have 8 hours between now and an election is debatable, but that is a possibility what we could almost offer if some of us would go through that training. There are other resources available, I think we've identified. But I mean, very briefly, we're working per constituency, and we are there are 1 or 2 gaps, I think, in people who are working within their constituency. And I think Southwest Wiltshire is the key one there, now that Julie's are no longer around. So if there's anyone who is in Southwest Wiltshire who would like to help, I think Bill is there, but I think you're not wanting to lead on that because you've got plenty on your plate. Is that right, Bill?
That's right. Yeah, I will engage, but I need somebody else to sort of tell me what to do, basically.
And I think, to be honest, at this stage, the work in each constituency is, as we've done in other ones, and I know Keith's done some fabulous work in South Cotswold, is really just to identify and connect with local environment groups, any group that might have an interest in engaging with the husting in one form or another. And I mean, for instance, in the one I'm looking at, East Wiltshire, we've contacted around 30 schools and organisations. We've had one response back so far. I suspect that when an election's called, it's going to be a lot more interest there, but we certainly want to be able to follow that up. But the main thing at this moment is just to go out, reach out, find out who's out there, who's interested. The other thing that seems to be developing, and I'm sure others could speak to this better than me, but there are organisations. We've got a number of organisations, as you might expect. Greenpeace, through their Project Climate Vote, Hope for the Future, and Friends of the Earth, have all offering ways, or they're actually looking to try and influence climate change being a big issue for all MPs. And so actually there is training out there for people to engage with the public through that. I don't know if anyone's done any of those. Yeah, Keith, could you briefly speak? Which one did you engage with?
Yeah, sure. The reason I was an hour late for the meeting is I spent an hour, as we agreed, on the campaign called 0 Hour being run at the moment by a countrywide organisation, because I wanted to find out what it was about, and it was headlined as, how to successfully convince your MPs and constituency groups to back the climate and nature bill that's going through the Parliament's private members bill, which has been variously resubmitted over the last few governments as different names, started by the Green Party and now being backed by loads of things. What was really interesting is it felt like a campaign that was quite successfully getting lots of sign up by MPs and large organisations and volunteer groups, and therefore was gathering significant momentum, particularly a large number of MPs and candidates signing up to support, saying they support the climate and nature bill going through Parliament the next time, because they could see it as a vote winning thing to do. So my feeling was that it felt like a really good idea to align our campaign with one or more of these organisations, the Greenpeace one, the other ones you mentioned, to give us a structure and a system we could immediately provide to each constituency in Wiltshire as a sort of tool they could use to drive the campaigning. Because what I'm finding is when you go to people independently and say, oh, are you interested in doing something to convince voters in South Cotswold constituency that they should vote green, it feels like it's the sort of idea you've developed without actually having anything you can offer and deliver. So my feeling is we're much more successful if we align ourselves with such groups. Yeah, and I'll write some notes on my findings.
Great, thank you, Keith. And I said there's others as well who are offering this sort of training. So I think we've got a meeting of the group that's specifically around the MPs' engagement and hustings next Tuesday at 5. If anyone who is not already on that, we have our own WhatsApp group connector and also an email group courtesy of Julian's comms. And so if anyone else wants to join that, you're very welcome, particularly if you are in South West Wiltshire. But I think it would be good. One of the things we need to discuss, I think, is how we, now these big organisations are coming forward, how do we actually connect with them? How do we relate with them? What, because the last thing, one of the aims we had right at the start was not to duplicate efforts that are going on in these areas, because apart from anyone, that's going to piss off the MPs. You're not going to get the sort of attention if they're being badgered by all these other groups asking the same questions. So, coordination is key to this, I think. Derek, you've got your hand up.
I'm assuming I've got my mic's on. Yeah, I mean, I'm in close contact with certainly two of the prospective or Liberal Democrat candidates. That's for Chippenham and for Melksham Devizes, and I can also connection with Ros Savage from South Cotswolds. I would suspect that some of them would actually be quite positive in terms of making that connection so that they can make sure they are up to speed, because otherwise they potentially could find themselves caught out, because obviously the questions that will come be asked of them will be very wide ranging, and they may find themselves a bit adrift as far as the issues that WCA are up to speed with. So if you want to have any of that kind of connection, then I'm happy to initiate that.
Great, thank you for that, Derek. And I think that's one of the things we need to raise at the next meeting as well, isn't it? Because I notice a lot more candidates are now coming forward. We've got Keith, your patches. We've got 5 or 6 now.
Let's can we keep this high level, folks? This is we've been here 2 hours 10 minutes. It's almost as long as a council meeting. Beginning to know how Derek feels. Keith, come on in. And Derek, if you've got more, you need to add after Keith.
That was an old hand. Apologies. It's down now.
Oh, well, I'm helping everyone for nothing. Look.
We're done, Andrew. I think the main thing, if anyone wants to join next week, please do let us know and we'll add you to the list.
And we need to dwell on our comms and how we get these messages and meetings at short and medium term notice.
And remember, as steering group, we have a meeting at 7 o'clock on the 9th.
7 o'clock on the 9th.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We've been around the houses here. Thanks so much, everyone. I particularly admired the it was who was that with the child attending
Jackie.
Giving them carbon literacy training very early on. The other Jackie,
Jackie from Salisbury. She's doing that the training, the retrofit training for STC. That's the other Jackie.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Jackie Machin.
Who's the other one?
She's treasurer for Salisbury Transition City.
I think Amy from Bradford and Avon was here earlier, wasn't she? Yeah. She's also training.
Retrofit training. I'm looking forward to comparing that retrofit training with the Cheese Project training that I did in Bristol, which has a slightly different approach to thermal imaging cameras. Anyway, look, so shall we just remind you to do your lower leg exercises.
Right.
Since we've been on this long haul flight of a meeting, which I thought was an amazing meeting, and lots in our future. I wish I could read the tea leaves. And I look forward to meeting you all again, to hearing from several of you specifically, including Derek and I think Christian, Jackie, and so on. And thank you so much, Jez. Thanks for that. Thumbs up. I'm working on something in transport with Jez in Bradford on Avon, in our role of scrutiny and holding Wiltshire Council to account. More of that later on, and we're reviving the transport topic group meetings as well. So I declare the formal part of the meeting closed. Can you stop recording then? Who's recording? And
Stopped it.
We can say our goodbyes. My Zoom screen still says that there's recording going on.
Is it? Oh no, yeah. I thought I'd stopped it. I stopped my video by mistake. Oh no, that's me. Hang on. Stop recording. I'm stopping my video and thinking. Here we go. Hang on. Here we go.